Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the 23rd episode on this podcast. Amen.
23.
23. And I'm joined by my amazing co host over here, Gideon, MJ. How are you, my man?
I'm good. I'm good. Walking the journey with God, and you?
I am hundreds, bro. I'm good. And I'm even more excited because of the topic for today. Okay, this one's for the girls, this one's for the ladies. And
Yes,
it is Waiting for Husband, obviously, judging by the title. And I think it's just really useful to know these things, useful to know what to look for in a husband, what to look for in a man that you potentially want to marry one day. And Gideon got some amazing verses to kick us off with.
Yeah. No, that is the perfect way to start. So yeah, obviously last week we did the waiting for a wife one. We guys, obviously we dig deep into the topic, but we thought the same things probably do apply to women who are waiting for a husband. But yeah, we've done some research, and you will find a lot of the topics we spoke about last week will be similar to these ones as well. But obviously this one is more tailored towards the ladies. Um, yeah, so I'm just gonna start off with speaking about how you should know what a biblical man looks like. And I got this from a Vadi Bokkum's sermon. I think a lot of the topics we're going to be speaking about on today are inspired by that sermon. And he was just speaking about what a biblical man looks like. And obviously, if you're waiting for a husband, you're looking for a husband, you need to know like what kind of husband you're looking for, right? And um, one of the first points I'm going to make that he made was that it is important to pick a man based on not what the world says you should look at. So obviously things like height, money, status, like how good of an athlete is he, all of that. Like you should not pick a man based on that, but you should pick him based on what God says a good man is. And I think a good place to start
Mm,
is 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. And I am reading from the NIV today. I normally read from the New Living Translation. I think it's just the easiest for me. But NIV, honestly, I don't know the difference between them. Maybe you might know, Darian. But yeah, I just got NIV here, so
yeah.
I'm just going to be reading from there. So yeah, 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7, and it says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." And
Mm.
I'm back to what I said earlier. Like this is literally from last week's podcast. Like Darren, you used this verse, and today I was like, I'm using this verse.
Yeah,
It matches
works
so well.
both ways.
Yeah, I think it's so important for us to, yeah, if you're looking for a husband, it's important for you to judge a man based on what God says and not what we say. And obviously, as it says there in First Samuel, it's important. The Lord doesn't look at like the outward appearance, right? Like in God's eyes,
Mm,
we're all wonderful, we're all beautiful. Um, but it's the characteristics, that make the man. And yeah, one of the first things that Vadi Bokkum said that was very important was that a man should be committed to God honoring labor. And yeah, you mustn't be lazy. Like I think we have this thing. I was actually speaking with my friend again, Darren. You'd know him from high school, Mr. Vessels. Um, we were
yeah,
just
yeah.
speaking about like just the topic of relationships in general, and we spoke about how it can get difficult to trust God because we all kind of have this view that like, oh, um, if, if I'm letting go of like the woman I see that I want, as my wife, and I have to trust God. He's going to give me this woman I'm not attracted to, and all of that and stuff. And I think a similar thing that might happen with like a lady is that like, oh, um, if I'm having to let go of like the world standards for a man, I'm having to pick what a biblical man looks like. I'm going to have to pick this man that I'm not attracted to. He's just like
Mm,
soft and he doesn't work hard or anything like that. But I think it's important. First and foremost, it's important just to bring comfort to people that the desire for love was created by God, and it is not something you should
mm,
like repress. Obviously, we can get into how it gets perverted by the world and how again, like here, that desire for love can be like, oh no, I need him to be 6 foot, he needs to be like an NBA player, and he needs to have all this. No, like it doesn't need to be like that. But it's
yeah,
also
yeah,
important
yeah.
that attraction was created by God. Like the things we look for in
Exactly.
attraction, for the most part, were created by God. And again,
Mm,
you wanting a man like who maybe not doesn't have to be like rich, but a man who like works hard and is able to provide. That is something that was created by
mm,
God. Like and the Bible does say, and I'm going to read. I think there's a verse for that. Yeah, Proverbs 6, verse 10 to 11. It does say, it's not good for a man. A man should not be lazy. So Proverbs chapter 6, verse 10 to 11. And again, I'm reading from the NIV version or NIV. It says, "A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." So
Mm.
again, there's so many verses, but yeah, a man should not be lazy. Okay, a biblical man is not a lazy man because you should be committed to God honoring labor. But yeah, I'm just gonna stop there and hear your take on that, Darian.
No, I think it's excellent, bro. Really, really good. And that 1 Samuel verse, I think, puts it into perspective. And it just shows because I mean, we mentioned about the woman finding a wife for the guys last week, and then now this week. It works both ways. I mean, it's literally your heart. Like that's all God cares about. And it's crazy because like I think the height thing's a big one. Okay, like girls care about height so much these days, which is a crazy thing. And I know that's because a lot of like guys complain to me. Some of my friends that are shorter than me, like I'm pretty much average height, right? And some of my friends like complain to me about like, oh, girls complain about height, whatever. And it's like it's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, look at what the Bible says. Obviously they're not the right goal for you. Then if they care about the wrong things, God, the Bible calls us to be Christ-like, and that's what you look for. You look for their hearts. And yeah, exactly what you're saying about laziness as well. Definitely agree. Like laziness is not from God. It is definitely, I would say it's a sin in a sense,
Isn't
right?
so.
Because you're choosing to be lazy. Free
Sloth
will,
is
right?
isn't it what are those sins? There's like gluttony, sloth. I forgot what it's called, like as a thing, but I know, yeah, sloth is one of the sins.
Uh, the verse, yeah. Is it not Galatians?
Fruits of the spirit.
Before
No,
before the fruits of the spirit, I think it could actually be, yeah.
yeah,
But I think there's a
no,
lot of
sloth.
verses like that.
Sloth is a sin. It's just definitely a sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so I mean, being lazy, it's not of God. But what is of God is discipline, which is the exact opposite of laziness.
Mm.
And I think JP made a sermon about laziness and discipline, probably one of the best sermons I've ever watched. And he goes like in depth of like all these things about discipline and like laziness and how it affects people in the Bible, and all the like he uses a lot of good analogies there. And one verse I can think of when it comes to discipline is Hebrews 12 verse 2, I think it is, where it says, no discipline is enjoyable while anyone's going through it. Like you don't enjoy it a lot of the time. Like there'll be things that you just have to do. You have to do it. Like you're a man, you have to do certain things as a man, okay, to protect your family, to protect your household, all of that. It's not going to be enjoyable at first, but it's always rewarding in the end. Like it always bears fruit. That's what the verse says. It always bears fruit at the end. And you've got to always remember that is the end goal. And it's actually crazy that we're talking about this topic because last night, I actually spoke to one of my friends, and we were speaking about like finding the one and finding a goal and all of these things. And he was saying like, oh, like what if God gives me this person, and I wanted this, but like it's God's way of um teaching me a lesson or working in this way, so he'll give me a woman like that or whatever. And
Mm.
sometimes God works like that, yes, but at the same time, like free will exists. And so you have to make the choice. I believe that the man has to approach the woman. Like that's very important. It's your manly role to be the man, right? In that sense. And so I was explaining that concept, but like we're having like this debate whenever about like, finding the one or whatever. So like it's crazy that we're doing this topic. And
Yeah.
yeah, one thing I'll definitely say about masculinity is the world defines in a different sense these days. Like it's sad the way it is now. Like when it comes to masculinity, now toxic masculinity is a big thing. And excuse me. Yeah, like when I look at masculinity now, it's like it's defined as like someone doesn't cry or like, doesn't show emotion, that kind of thing. It's a guy that goes to the gym, he's big, he's bold, whatever. Like that's the masculine man. Like he's 6 foot, whatever. It's like Like those are definitions of masculinity. And yesterday I was watching a podcast by Lecrae and Matt Chandler, and Lecrae was asking about like men in the church and like just men in general. And Matt Chandler said that having the confidence to have authority over the calling that God's placed on your life. So, in other words, having confidence and pursuing the call that God's put on your heart, okay, pursuing your purpose is the most masculine thing that you could do as a man. And
Mm.
I really thought about it like for a while. And I'll be honest, like there's not many people that I can see in my life that I know, okay, men that are doing that. Okay, like everything else, like people are consumed by the world's definition of success, or all these things, chasing the next thing, chasing money or chasing woman or chasing, fame, all these things. But it's like really just doing what God's called you to do, which easier said than done. Yes, I understand that, but that is literally God's definition of what it means to be a man, like following that goal. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, kid.
Oh yeah, lots. Not. I think that is such an incredible thing. Can you actually repeat the quote? Yeah, I thought it was just
Yeah.
fantastic.
So it's having the confidence to have authority over the calling God's placed on your life is the most masculine thing you can do as a man.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And again, it goes back to what we were saying, what I was saying earlier, where like the things we spoke about in the last podcast are going to be tied into this because
Mm.
again, when two people get married, the two become one, right? So
Yeah.
last week we spoke a lot about obviously what to look for in a wife, but also the kind of man you need to be, right, to find a wife.
Yeah.
And this week, we're going to speak about what to look for in a husband, and that's going to tie in again with like the kind of man someone needs to be. And last week, I remember when you're speaking about purpose. Purpose is very, very important because when the two become one, you guys are obviously going to need to go in one direction, right? And
Yeah.
obviously you as the woman that's looking for a husband, you need to know what God's calling on your life is, right? Because when you become one with
Exactly.
the man, like you guys are going to be moving in one direction, and if you don't know your purpose or he doesn't know his purpose, then you're setting yourselves up for some trouble ahead, because one day one of you guys is going to figure out something and like, oh, maybe the direction you're going with this guy isn't really like what you want, what God has called on your life, or it's not what you want, whatever it is.
Mm.
Or worse, like you cannot go for a man who doesn't know like what his purpose is, right? It's very important for him to know his purpose. And we spoke last week about something that I heard when I was speaking again to my friend. He spoke about this book called Wild at Heart, which is speaking about biblical masculinity. And in that book, like it says that a lot of young men nowadays have, instead of chasing their purpose and like that being the adventure, they've made like
Yeah.
finding the girl the adventure. And
Mm.
you don't want to look for a man like that, because if you're his goal, what's gonna happen like once you guys are together? Like he's gonna have like no ambition. He's gonna get led
Mm.
down like the path of sloth again. We spoke about what it says in Proverbs, and I think he said it's probably in Galatians as well, about how like sloth is a sin. It's important for him to know his purpose because again, you want a man that's gonna
Yeah.
lead you right in your walk with God. And
Mm.
again, this is another very important part. The man you pick needs to be God led, right? You can't just pick. That's why you can't just pick based on the barometers that this world gives. The artificial
Yeah.
ones of like height, status, all of that
Mm.
stuff. Like that doesn't matter. The most important thing
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that he is a biblical man who's God led. It's very important. You must be God led as well. Like we must all be God led, right? But the man
Mm.
you're picking, right, he's going to be the head of your household, and he's a man. He's fallible, right? He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to fall short plenty of times, right? Because we
Mm.
all fall short. But if he's God led and Christ is his firm foundation, you can rest assured that your family is going to rest on a firm foundation. So it's very important for him to be God
Amen.
led, because your trust in him to lead the household is based on his trust in God, right? And he always seeks God's counsel to lead him. He's not led by things of this world, right? He's not chasing
Yeah.
different things in this world. He's not chasing clouds. Because think of this, right? And it's quite interesting. I was shooting a YouTube video for this morning as well. If the man you're with, right? If his security and significance again, this is it just goes there's so many things we can speak about, right? If his source of security and significance is in things of this world, right? What's going to happen? Let's
Yeah.
use the athlete for an example, right? Let's say you've picked this guy because he's an athlete, like he's gonna have so much money, he's gonna be famous, like he's cool and all of that, right? What's
Early
gonna happen?
investment.
Yeah, she's investing. So what's gonna happen if or what's gonna happen once like his career ends, right? And I want to go back again. I
Yeah.
want to sort this properly, right? I'll sort this properly with the sermon that I speak about this all the time. The sermon I heard from Cliff Nettle, where he was speaking about the uh, the moral of the story of Abraham and Isaac, right? Basically, the moral of that story is you cannot put anything above God. You cannot put your source of security and significance in anything but God, right? Because everything
Mm,
can be taken away from you, right? If you put
yeah.
your source of security and significance in, how many followers you have, one day, you're not going to be growing in followers anymore. And what's going to happen? Or what's going to happen if you get cancelled, right? What's going to happen
Yeah.
when you keep growing? Like it's like drugs. Like honestly, like that's the problem with like this world, right? You can never get enough. Like it's just like Jesus said, if you drink of the water of this world, you will thirst again. But if you drink of my water, you will never thirst again. Um,
Mm,
the same thing
yeah.
with like followers. Like you can have people who growing like really really fast, but like you grow say you grow like okay, I'll have like for me as an example, like in 2022 when I was making content and stuff, like I had like 1 week where I just grew like 100K followers on Instagram just like that, right? And it's like
Sheesh.
that's cool, but then
Madness.
next week what's happening? Am I going to top that? Am I going to do it again? Right? And am I
Yeah.
going to, so even if you don't like fail, like if you keep growing, you're gonna need more and more. It's like a hit. It's like drugs, literally. Like you can start
Mm,
off with a little bit and it gives you that high, but then the more you do it, the more you need. And just to go back to the point I'm trying to make is that if your source of security and significance is in anything but God, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if you're picking him
yeah.
because he's an athlete, again, look at like Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Like he's an incredible athlete, had a wonderful career, right? But you look at him now, like
22.
he's pushing 40, like his leg,
Mm,
he's failing now. Like and it's not like a fault of his own, like he's doing his best, but he's human, right? His body, he can't
yeah.
keep up with the
Exactly.
youngsters anymore. He can't keep up with Lamine Yamal and all of them anymore.
Hey, yeah, yeah.
He's he's growing old. And now,
Yeah.
if his source of security and significance was in his career or in his ability to perform, what's going to happen now? His identity is going to be
Mm,
shaken, right? If your source of
exactly.
security and significance is in your ability to think, right? Things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these like diseases, they
Sure.
exist,
That's a good one.
right? And it's going to deteriorate eventually because we're human. And if you put your source of security and significance in your relationship, right? Because I know a lot of like women do this a lot as well, right? And just men as well. We spoke about like this last
Mm,
week. If you put your source of security and significance in a person, right? Again, you're setting yourself up for failure. Please, please do not put your source of security and significance in a person because their feelings
sure.
will change, right? And if your security is in them, they're not secure.
Yeah.
They're not a secure person, and that's why everyone's source of security and significance should be in God. Even your health. Again, I can go on and on, bro. Like I can go on and on. um,
Jeez.
everything
Fire.
fades.
Absolute fire.
Every
Yeah.
everything fades, but never God.
Yeah.
God will always be there, and He's always going to be a firm and solid foundation. So need to put you need to put your source of security and significance in God. But the man you pick also needs to put his source of security and significance in God, because if he does that,
Yeah.
no matter what happens, he's always going to be firm, right? Because he doesn't rely on his own strength, but on God's strength. But yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if you have anything to
Exactly.
add to that, Darian.
Phew. That was facts, bro. Like so good. So good. Um, yo, I'm speechless, yeah. But yeah, that was like solid and exactly what you're saying. Like that sermon, I remember when I can't remember which episode it was exactly, but you
Yeah.
told me, you mentioned it for the first time, and I was shocked. Like I couldn't, putting the gift above the giver, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Like I was just like in awe of that. But exactly what you're saying, like I think idolization is also big in relationships. Um,
Mhm.
where one partner idolizes the other. And funny enough, I was reading Proverbs 31 3 days ago. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know this is written to, I think the heading of the thing is like a godly woman. And then it says
Yeah.
Proverbs 31, all these verses. And the last verse in Proverbs 31, second to last verse, it's Proverbs 31, verse 30. And it's exactly what you're saying just now, like as you ended, before you ended, where you said, look and stuff like that don't matter, like it fades. And that verse literally says, charm is deceitful, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Right?
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's underrated because that's often what we do for like the most attractive or the best looking or whatever. And we don't realize that, like, as you're saying with like Cristiano Ronaldo, like he's 39. Okay, he's gonna be 40 next year. And people still expect him to play, at that level, or they still expect him to, like, because he's Ronaldo, because he's, got all these followers and whatever. But at the end of the day, he's a human. Okay. Just
Yeah.
like you and I, bleeds the same blood, all of that. It's all the talent and skill that obviously separates him from other people. But like all of that fades away. Like all of that, it's gonna go eventually. And so, you look at things like stories in the Bible, like Job, okay, the faith that he had in God, like
Hmm.
you look at Joseph as well, but God was with
Yeah.
him, but God was with him, but God was with him. And it's the trust, it's a faith the size of a mustard seed, exactly what we spoke about last week. And yeah, it's just like it's holding on to God. It's like tightly just like realizing that He's literally all you need in your life. And as a woman, all you need is God, and you need a man who loves God more than he loves you, which sometimes
Mm.
women don't want to hear, but it's true. Okay, it's true. Like if your husband doesn't love you, or your partner or your boyfriend does not love you, does not love God more than loves you more than he loves God, okay, that's a red flag. That's a red flag
Mm.
because that's when things like idolization happens, where it's
Yeah.
like he idolizes you so
Damn.
much so that he forgets about God. Right. And I've seen
Jeez.
this in relationships. Okay, I've seen in relationships um where there's just like idolization of the other person's like of each other, and it's toxic. Okay, it ends up being toxic. And crazy that we're talking about this because um the conversation I had with my friend last night, we're talking, and he was telling me about someone he knows who got into a relationship, and he's dating this girl for like 2 months or whatever, and they call each other for 12 hours a day, right?
Hmm.
And they fall asleep on phone calls. Like he'll literally be doing something like watching TV, and she has to be on the call with him. Things like that. Like that's idolization, right?
Yeah.
It's idolization. There's no boundaries in a relationship. There's going to be idolization. It's as simple as that. If you do not have a boundary in a relationship, you're going to idolize a person. There are going to be boundaries that are going to be crossed. And you need to look for a man that establishes boundaries before anything.
Mm.
Like you see, that's what it is. Like as the man, you're the head of the household, right? And you got to establish the boundary before you enter the premises. Okay, like that boundary needs to be set. It's like, okay, listen, this is what's going to happen. These are the rules. Okay, we don't cross this boundary because if we do cross it, something bad's going to happen. Okay, it's childlike stuff, but I mean, it's so effective. And um, one thing I would definitely say, like a good tip, I gave my friend this tip as well when looking for a partner. Like it's three things. There's obviously more that you could add to the list, but
Yeah.
there's three things I look for. Okay, so woman, if you're looking for a man, here are the three F's that you want to look for. Okay,
Okay.
faith, family, and fitness. Those are three things I personally look for, right? And the reason I say this, right? Number one, faith. Obviously, he has to be a God fearing man, right? He has to
Hmm.
love God more than he loves you. Okay. Two, okay, family orientated. That is very important. There was a Harvard study done, a lifelong study. So what they did is they took candidates and they studied their lives for like 80 years, 70 years, however long they lived. And the number one regret that these people had was that they never spent enough time with their loved ones. Number one, they were successful. They
Mm.
were millionaires. They were successful. They had everything you could possibly think of. I mean, they went to Harvard, like it makes sense, right? But the one thing they didn't have was good relations with the people they loved. So that was their dying wish, right? So
Yeah.
family is very important. Family orientated, um, especially if he has a good relationship with his mom, which
Yeah.
is a very underrated one, right? And then thirdly is fitness. And why I say fitness is because, health is very important. And 1 Corinthians says that your body is a temple of God. Like, if you're not looking after it, you're basically disregarding what God's given you.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like very important. Like, I find that fitness for me is the one thing that's actually changed my life a lot. Um, and I've seen the improvement in my life. I feel healthy. I feel great. All of these things. And so that's something that you really want to look for. And the Bible speaks about fitness a lot. Okay, it speaks about like being strong, be strong physically, just as strong as you are in spirit. I think that's one verse. I think it's in 1 John. I think it is, or 3 John. Um, so like that's very important. Your body is a temple, so feed it in that way. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to add there.
Damn, yo, that's a lot. I actually had to like write down because I wrote down 3 points from like everything you said because there was so many good things. I'm just gonna start at the first part where you
Mm,
spoke about, he must love God more than he loves you. And I think it just goes back to the
mm,
same thing of God being like your firm foundation. And you
exactly.
you pointed to it where you're saying that like if he loves you more than he loves God, then you've got an issue because
Mm,
again, you're human
exactly.
and you're fallible, right? But also more importantly, like his love for you can be based on so many different things. And one day you can just wake up and he's just not feeling it, right? And you're human, so you're gonna respond to that in a certain way as well, right? Like I'm just thinking for myself, and if I love someone and and they
Yeah.
love me, and then all of a sudden they switch up for whatever reason, I'm also gonna feel some kind of way and I'm gonna retaliate. But if his love is based on the blueprint that God has shown us, right, which is unconditional love, and if he loves God,
Hmm.
right, look at our relationship with God, right? Like we've spoken about it before about the relationship we have with God being like a toddler child relationship, a toddler parent
Yeah.
relationship, right? Where the
Yeah.
toddler obviously loves the parent and really relies on the parent. But every so often, the toddler will do something and the parent will be like, no, that's not happening, right? And the toddler will cry and everything, but the toddler will still come back, right? Because the toddler fully trusts that the parent
Exactly.
loves him or her, right? The toddler will fully trust that the parent loves them. And because they see that love, the toddler returns that love, right? And that's the same way we are with God, right? Like I can be mad at God, like when things don't go my way, or I think, just something, he's just not letting things happen the way I want them to. And because if I have a relationship with him like a toddler has with their parents, even though I don't understand,
Mm,
I'm still going to go back to God. And my love for God is based on the love He has shown me. He's loved me even though I don't deserve it, right? I don't deserve His love. I don't deserve His grace, and He's shown me. Even when I'm running away from Him, He loves me. Even when things are not going well and I'm not obeying Him, He still loves me, right? And if my love is based on that, right, you can guarantee that when He's showing you love in your marriage, it's going to be similar, right? It's going to be similar, like, oh, God has loved me this way, and I love God that way, right? I'm going to show
yeah.
the same kind of love to you. Whereas if His love is
Mm,
fully based on you, if He's fully in love with you more than He loves God, right? Again, you are not a firm foundation. God is a firm foundation. So when you
yeah.
start shaking, He's going to start shaking. And also, if His love for you is based, again, it's based on certain feelings or whatever it is. If you're His like North Star, right? If you're His adventure, what's gonna happen when you start getting shaky? Like, what's gonna happen when you need someone to lean on, right? Going back to that God led thing, right? You're picking a husband who's gonna lead your household, right? How are you gonna be led by someone who's led by you? It just doesn't make sense.
Mm,
And because he's fallible, you're fallible, that foundation is just not strong. But if you're led by someone who's led by God, because God is a firm foundation, that strength filters down from him to your husband and to you, right? And I think that's important. I think it was very important what you said about loving God, him loving God more than he loves you. I don't know if you have anything to add to that before I get on to your other points.
no, no, no. Exactly, bro. And it is a crazy world we live in. Um, but yeah, like I think just it's like you got to be honest with yourself and come to the point of knowing what you really want. And like at the end of the day, okay, we all want. I definitely want a Christian woman. You want a Christian woman. Girls want a Christian guy, Christian husband, whatever. And I think also a big factor is that we often um, we often deviate from the path of God because we are attracted to our friends' options and what they also pick. So like your environment as well is so important.
Yeah.
Um, that's why Bible says iron sharpens iron, and um, you know spend time with the wise, you'll become spend time with the wise,
Yes.
you'll become wise. Spend time with the fools, you'll become foolish, right? So it's like also
Mhm.
that is another one that I wanted to like just pick on a bit. It's your friend groups and your environments because those people influence you so much when it comes to relationships and finding a girlfriend, finding a husband, a boyfriend. Like your girls could be saying one thing and like, oh my word, look at him, he's amazing, he's this and that, whatever, all these things. And like I've seen this a lot, right? Like you get like that little your girls that hype you up, the little girl groups that hype you up, and it can be
Yeah.
very like a very strong feeling, like, oh, you gotta go for this guy, like he's such a good guy, this and that. But like man doesn't know who Jesus is. You know what I'm saying? Like he's heard of the name, but he doesn't know him as his dad, right? Like things
Yeah.
like that you gotta look for. But yeah, I just wanted to add there. You can carry on, bro.
Oh, I think that is excellent what you said. I think it was another one of the, well, I don't know if it was another one of the points Vodi Bakker made in his sermon on what a biblical man, but I definitely took
Mhm.
that from it, where again, he needs to be a God led man. I've beaten that point to a pulp in this in this episode. But
Yeah.
another component of that is that he needs to seek God led counsel. So, it's obviously
Yes.
important for him to North Star is God because He's our firm foundation, right? But when you're going through things, when you're like just something as simple as your marriage, right? Let's keep it topical. Your marriage with Him. If you guys are going through trouble, right? And you've heard, I've seen like fancy little quotes where it's like, oh no, you guys need to have a marriage where when there are problems in your marriage, he doesn't run off to his friends and talk crap about you, but rather you guys you run to each other, not to other people. I would go as far as to say that the friends that he does have need to be God led. So whatever trouble he has, he needs to make sure that he's running to God. And sometimes,
Mm,
it's obviously great, if you just read your Bible, you pray to God, and you get the answer like that. That's fantastic. But honestly, from what I've learned, like God speaks to us a lot through other people, and that's why it's important for him to
mm,
have God-led counsel. So you need to
exactly.
still trust. It's impractical, that quote where it's like, oh, if you guys are going through problems in your relationship or in your marriage, you shouldn't run off to your friends, but you should run to each other, because sometimes you just don't want to talk to each other. Sometimes you just can't see things the same way. But you should be
In
able to
space,
trust that if he goes to his friends, right, he's got the type of friends who are also God led, and they're going to seek godly counsel, right? They're going to give
yeah.
him godly advice. And again, it's the same thing of him being God led. That no matter what happens, no matter what problems he has, he's going to run to his friends, because that's who are like people who are like him. But he needs to have
Mm,
godly friends, because you know that if he runs to those friends, they're not going to tell him, "Oh no, you guys are." You guys aren't having a good time in your marriage. You get divorced, or I never liked her anyway, or whatever. Like, you should like if they're godly men, they're not going to say that. Right? If they're godly men,
yeah.
they're gonna like, bro. I was speaking to Jaden. The it was on Sunday or Monday, right? I was speaking to him, and
Mhm.
I was telling him like problems I'm going through, and bro's paging through the Bible, and he's giving me like these Bible verses, and I'm like, that is wow, like that's what we should be seeking, right?
Yes.
That's the kind of thing you should see now. Like, if you're having a fight with your husband or whatever it is, you should be able to trust that
Mm,
when he runs to his friends with his problems, they're going to be paging through the Bible, right? Try to give them like verses and like, like godly counsel to be like, hey, this is how you
mm,
sort your life out, right? And I think that's a very important part of having
yes.
godly counsel. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yo, that's crazy. Man like vessels. Yes.
Man, like, man, like
Um,
this.
no, but that is very true. Like, also, when it comes to friends, I think it's just like, it's just having, you don't need this. big friend group or whatever, and we've spoken about this before, but like
Mm.
it's just literally having those key members that you need. Like it's just a few people in your life. And again, like it's actually crazy. Last night's conversation, but yeah, like last night's conversation with my friend, we literally spoke about this exact same thing about friends, like having the right people. Um, because if you have the wrong friends, you're gonna make the wrong decisions. Like that's very self-explanatory. But like, yeah, it's having that counsel that can be like, okay, listen, bro, like I think you should pray about this, all of that. And it's like sometimes, yeah, exactly. God uses them to speak to you a lot of the time as well. Same with me. People speaking to my life and people say things and will help me. And I'm like, wow, that's just God. Like there's no other explanation to what's just happened. It's God using them to speak to me through them. And having those people around you is absolutely essential. Like you've got to have, firstly, a small group, and secondly, God-led people, Spirit-led people.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the Holy Spirit works, and I was explaining this to my friend last night as well. I said the Holy Spirit's in every single one of you who accepts Jesus into your heart. The Holy Spirit lives inside of you, but it's your job to activate the Holy Spirit in your life. It's your job to
Mm.
do so, right? Like the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit doesn't just start doing its thing. You give your life to Jesus. Oh my word, I'm changed, feeling different. All of these things. It's like no, you have the free will again. Like free will's in your hands, and
Yeah.
you have the choice to let the Holy Spirit work through you or not. So yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that there.
No, 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 powerful stuff, man. And yeah, the second point you made on your earlier monologue, you said that like he establishes he establishes boundaries, and
Yeah,
it's so good. Like it's such an important point to make because I was speaking with my one friend at church. This was probably like 6 weeks ago or something like that. We were just speaking, and he was telling me about a previous relationship he had. When he wasn't in a relationship that he was meant to be in.
hmm
So he was speaking about obviously from the guy's perspective, where he was saying that like when he was with her, like he asked her like a question where he was like, obviously they're not married, they're just dating, and he was like, if we decided to like not wait till marriage, like what would you say? And she was like, oh no, yeah, it's fine. Like I'd be fine with it. And what he was telling me was like the woman you're with, or the woman you should be with, should be one who would establish those boundaries. Like she shouldn't be like okay with like you being like okay,
mm,
we're not waiting for marriage anymore, and she's like okay. Like he was like no, the woman you're with shouldn't be like that. And I would actually flip that and say it should be the other way around as well, right? Like the man you're with should be a man who's first of all not going to pressure you into like sinning. Again, if he's God led, he's not going to do that. But secondly, because again, it goes back to the same thing of him being God led and him having Christ as a firm foundation, is that if
yeah,
you, let's say for whatever reason, and again, you're having your own walk with God as well, right? So like you should be in a place, or you should be looking to be in a place where you're not gonna like go against what he said. But let's say for whatever reason, you guys are in a just you find yourself in a moment where you just kind of want to ignore it. Let's say you've gotten engaged. That's a perfect thing. I think I don't know who said it. Or it was my friend from church, my other friend. And he was saying that like the hardest part of like waiting for marriage is like that period when you're engaged to when you're married. So let's say you're in that period,
mm,
right? And you're like, okay, now we're engaged to be married. We're gonna be married, right? The Bible says wait until marriage, but like we're technically married anyways, and you guys are like fooling around or whatever it is, and you're in a moment of weakness, right? The man you're with you should be like, okay, maybe you're in a moment of weakness and you like want to like, yeah, it's fine, we're already married anyway, let's do it. He should be like a man who'd be like, no, like absolutely not, right? We need to wait until marriage because the Bible says we should wait until marriage. That's the kind of man you
mm,
should be with, right? You should not be with a man who's gonna fall with you in those temptations. And it goes back to what you were saying, Darian, about a man who loves God more than he loves you. Is that like if he loves you more than he loves God, bro, you can best believe at that moment he's going to be like, yeah, let's do it, right? But the man you
facts.
should be with, a biblical man, would be one who's like, no,
Mm,
like you should wait until marriage. God has made it that way for a reason, and we've spoken about this before, Darian, about like the reasons like God says that. Um, I can go into like stats I learned like a while ago. It wasn't I was watching Red Bull videos. It was stupid, but like anyways, the stats were to do with marriage, and it was to do with like how body count like affects marriage. And obviously it goes down. Like the more people you slept with before marriage, like the lower your chances of success of
Mm,
a successful marriage. But
yeah.
the interesting part, the part I found so interesting, was that if you guys are like virgins before like you're married, like the percentage was something like, yeah, it was like 68% like success rate or something like that. No, it was 75. It was 75%, right? But
Crazy.
you guys, if you've only ever had one person, right? Like you guys, let's say you guys are high school sweethearts, right? And you've gotten engaged or whatever it is. Maybe you haven't even gotten engaged, but you've only ever been together and you guys have sex before marriage, right? But you still get married. Instantly, your chances of success for marriage go down from 75% to like 68%, which I was like, damn, like that is so interesting. And again, we can get deeper and deeper into that. But again, it's just a nice like illustration of exactly why God
Mm.
says you wait until marriage. Like that blurred line of like, oh, we're engaged, but we're not married yet. Absolutely not. Like I think that's why it's important for the man to be God led. Um, but yeah, I love that point you made about him establishing boundaries.
Bro, 100%. Like, yo, that was good. Very, very good. And yeah, I mean, it's like the analogy I use where it's like you're opening the gift early, and you just that's
Yeah.
literally what it is, and you think about that as well. Like people move in together as well. That's another thing. It's the
Mm,
thing is, right? Marriage is like it's this new. It's underrated. That's what I
yeah.
will say. It's underrated. People, JP made this. I think I said it last week as well. Like people are scared to get married. People are scared to get into these relationships because of what they see around them. Okay, because of the hurt, because of the pain, because of these divorces they're seeing, and all these things. And obviously, those are horrible things. But it's because those people followed the wrong blueprint. They
Mm,
didn't follow the blueprint that God has given us. And it is really sad and so on. But like, you got to understand, it's marriage is also this partnership as well. And one
yeah.
indication I will give to know that it's not the you're not with the right person or you're not in the right relationship is that if you find that your relationship with God starts lessening and you start distancing from God while dating this person, that is a big red flag because it should actually be the other way around.
Yes.
And I've mentioned this before where I said that person should compliment you, right?
Mm,
There might be things that you're not strong in faith in or know or knowledgeable about that she's going to be knowledgeable about or he's going to be knowledgeable about. Like that's what it's about. It's about like learning from each other. It's not that you the know it all and you have to, like know everything, and no one's asking you to like, no one's saying you got to know everything and you got to be this and that whenever, like, exactly what Red Paul videos are about. That's what it is. It's like you got to be this man, you got to have this, you got to have this, and it's
yeah.
like I used to watch that as well. Like Gid and I used to watch that a lot, and it's draining, bro. Like you you make this checklist. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna be this and that. Like, yes, going to the gym is great. It's as I mentioned before, fitness is very important. But there's
Mm,
other like things like like all these things about your hair and your this and that, and like you have to get this product and you have to do that. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, wow, like is this really what woman wants? It's like, is this? And that's the thing, right? That is the blueprint for attracting the wrong woman. They give you a blueprint to literally
exactly.
attract the wrong people. And same with women as well. I'm pretty sure there are videos like that around
Oh yeah.
space when it comes to women as well. And you have to dress in this way. You have to be, if you want the attention from the right guys, you have to dress in this way, and you have to post this, and you have to post that. And it's like, honestly, you don't have to post anything that you don't want to attract the man that God has for you, because He will
Mm,
love you for what's in that heart of yours, not what's on that body of yours,
mm.
right?
Laws.
Bars just came out. Just came out. But genuinely, that's what it's about. Like,
Yeah.
objectification nowadays, like sexual objectification is so common. It is like, it's scary how common it is and how it's become a norm. And this is what like most guys think this way, and this is what they look for in women. But literally, like, if he just loves you for who you are and he sees that for you, and I know that can be like deceiving, and it's like, oh, there's no way it's like he likes me because of who I am or whatever, but you feel it sometimes. Like the Holy Spirit shows you, and you can feel when something is real, and you can feel when
Mm,
it's genuine as well. And yeah, like things like, I want to get back to that point about the whole sleeping together, being with the high school sweetheart, like that kind of thing, what you were saying. And it just defeats the purpose of marriage, what it's about. Like, you get your entire lifetime to work on the one gift that God has given you, okay, meaning sex, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you decide to use that gift before. So when you get married, it's like, oh, what is this? Like, you know, like we've done it so
Yeah,
much in our past before we were married. Now it's just like dead, like it's just not meaningless. So then you have to go to marriage counsel. So then you have to find ways to keep this thing alive because you've used up what it was supposed to be happening in the stage of marriage, in the stage of covenant. And it destroys the whole purpose of marriage. That's why divorce happens. That's why you start separating from people.
yeah,
Living together, same thing. Okay, living together was meant to be in covenant, not you moving in with your girlfriend, boyfriend. Great, we're getting married anyway. May as well. You know, I know she's the one. I know he's the one. Cool. Let's just do this thing. Defeats the purpose. That's why, I mean, so many people, you know, don't last in that sense. Like, it's just, that's how it is, which is a sad thing. But I mean, you brought it upon yourself. It's like the Bible's clear on what it says. James, that verse that you mentioned, I love that verse. Do what it says, right? Do what the word says. Don't just look at it. Okay, it's like looking in a mirror, walking away and forgetting what you look like.
yeah,
We can quote all these scriptures and say all these things, but it's like, even like till death do us part, all these things that you have to say, your vows, you have to say all of that. It's like, are you really going to do those things in marriage? And is that person the person that you really want to spend the rest of your life with? Um, and that's why I say, like, finding that person, it takes a while. Like, it's not just something that happens overnight. Like, God will show you things. He'll give you signs. Um, he'll use
yeah.
people to speak into your life, people that are close to you, people that you can trust. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to add there.
Jeez, so many things, bro. And that's what I love about like these conversations. It's like you're saying something, you make like 3 points. I still have to get through the 3 points you originally made, and then you keep expanding. I love it. But yeah, you have so
Yeah.
many things you said that were just opening up a can of worms, bro. Um, I think the one thing I wanted to say just before I forget about it is that like the whole waiting until marriage and if you're like in the engagement space or like moving in and stuff, is that if the
Mhm.
man you're with is not willing to wait or is not able to wait until marriage, first of all, it shows a lack of discipline, and you don't want to manage
Mm,
discipline because like that's going to cause you problems.
yes.
But secondly, and most importantly, it's a lack of trust in God. And again, if he's not trusting in God, that means he's trusting in his own way. And as we mentioned earlier, he's a man, he's fallible.
Mm,
So that's going to cause problems in your marriage because Christ is not his firm
exactly.
foundation. But I want to speak the two main things you said that I want to speak about. That was the moving in thing and then like the red pill thing. So I want to start with the moving in thing. And it's something that is a big debate. It's a big debate. And I watched like Jordan Peterson videos where he'd like talk about this. Now obviously there's a bit more of like a secular audience, but I would expect way less opposition, right, in the Christian community. But either way, I think it's
Yes.
important for us to kind of speak about this because we do a lot of things that we don't understand, and sometimes it's nice to like just get a change in perspective, right? So the whole moving in thing, I think we can all agree, moving in is not biblical, right? It's not biblical. You're supposed to wait until
Yeah.
marriage. All of that. Back then, I'm pretty sure you weren't even allowed to like hold her hand, bro, until you got married. Um, if you held her hand, it was like scandalous. It was like,
Yeah.
oh damn.
Yeah.
But the moving in thing, right? So the mentality behind this, the way Jordan Peterson explained it, right? So this is like moving down from like what God said to like a more psychological explanation for it, right? The reason, so the rebuttal people give against, oh, you should move in. Like people say you shouldn't move in before you get married. It's the whole thing of like, you need to see how you guys are going to work together, and understand each other's habits and see if you guys can like
Yeah.
work well or not, right? But then what Jordan Peterson said, right, which makes sense to me, and I agree with it as well, is that when you do that, similar to like the whole like sex before marriage thing and like going and sleeping around, so you can figure your body out and all that crap, is that when you move in before you get married, you're building this mentality of, oh no, I'm gonna try this out and see how it is. If I don't like it, I can go back. I can go back, but I'm just gonna dip my toe
Mm,
in and see if I like it. If I don't, then I'm
yeah.
gonna leave. But marriage is covenant. It is two people becoming one. And besides, I think one of the main reasons us as Christians definitely accept the fact that we shouldn't move in before marriage is because the
Yeah.
temptations and then you end up having sex before marriage. But apart from that, the whole living together before you get married is that you're building this mentality of I'm dipping my toe in, and the moment I want to leave, I can leave, and that's another reason for why marriage is the divorce rate is high, right? It's that mentality, and I think Jordan Peterson went on further to mention that the stats do show that like if you move in together before you get married, not only does it not improve your marriage like success rate, it actually like actually lessens them a little bit because of that mentality, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no the correlation between moving in together before marriage and actually and your marriage success rate. It's actually like a negative one. It's a slightly negative one. Like it's not positive. It's not we're moving in together. We're gonna see how we live together, and like I'm happy with this. Let's get married, live happily ever after. No, because of the mentality that's built with that. But another point you made that I wanted to speak on was you spoke about like the red
Mm,
pill, right? And how it gives you the blueprint
mm.
on attracting the wrong women. I remember, dude, I would watch these red pill videos and I thought about it. I remember I got to a point where I was thinking about it. And I was like, yeah, okay, they're giving you all these like all this advice. And I remember there'd be like things about like, oh, how to dress for like sex appeal, and you should wear like these kind of gold chains. And they love doing this thing where like they have shirts, right? And you like button it all the way down so you can show off your chest. And it's like literally what you're saying. It's the blueprint for attracting the wrong kind of woman, right? Like you're attracting a
Yeah.
woman who's seeking you based on your sexual appeal. Like,
Mm.
yeah, that's gonna end well for someone who's looking for marriage. No, of course not, right? And you said that there probably is something for like women as well. I've seen them, dude. It's there, it's there. I've seen like what's it called, dark femininity. There's like all these female like self
Oh
improvement.
no.
There's like you understand like the feminist stuff and whatever, and all this like manipulation
Mhm.
stuff. And the same thing applies as does to Red Bull, right? Where it's like you're just
Exactly.
attracting a certain kind of man, right? I've seen like these things where it's um like act toxic, right? So you can like attract him. Again,
Yeah.
what kind of man are you going to
Yeah.
attract who's attracted to a toxic woman, right? Like if he's attracted to that behavior, you need to keep it up, right? Similar, it's same thing with red pill, bro. It all just ties in together. Like red pill, they're like, oh no, you should what is it? They're like you should be distant, don't show emotion.
Don't
Also
reply too quickly.
yeah, don't reply too quickly. There's
Yeah.
also like toxic stuff where it's like, oh no, like girls like a toxic guy, and it's like if you do that, what kind of girl are you gonna attract, right? And the same thing
Yeah.
applies with like this dark femininity and all that kind of crap. Is that like what kind of man are you gonna attract if you do that sort of thing? And also, again, I'm sure there's things similar to Red Bull where they'll tell you to like dress a certain way to attract a man,
Mm.
and it's like just think about the kind of man you're attracting. I think that's just very important. That was something I wanted to mention. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Darian.
No, 100%, bro. Like, that's so good. And I think I watched that Jordan Peterson, that clip. I think it was like a
Mm,
10-minute clip. Exactly what
yeah,
you're talking about. Was it the guy with the glasses that you're speaking to?
I don't remember. I just know I watched a lot of Jordan Peterson, bro. I heard him say it so many times.
Yeah, I think it was that one specifically because he was arguing the point of like, this guy was like, but he was a strange guy. Like he was arguing that like porn is healthy and all that stuff. So,
Was
anyways,
this Destiny,
obviously,
the guy with the blue hair?
no, 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 no,
I know
not. It
that
was an
guy.
older guy. Like I think he was some doctor or something. I don't know.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, Jordan Peterson just like set him down and what he usually does.
Yeah,
But no, I get you completely. Like, and what was the point when you said a guy's not disciplined enough if he can't wait till marriage was, I think it was Justin Bieber said this. Him and his wife, basically
yeah.
wife now. They said like the reason they got married was because they didn't want to wait too long to have sex.
Mm,
Which at first I was like, okay. I mean, I was different before. Like this was like years ago. I was like, okay,
yeah,
fair enough. Like you're married, it's fine. But I mean, that also is a bit. I mean, I'm assuming they were living together,
yeah,
or like they've seen each other often, and it's like, okay, we can't wait any longer. Like let's get married. Like, and then what that's doing now is like the only reason you're getting in this amazing, beautiful covenant is because you want to open the gift. And what they've done is they've just put the gift above the giver,
mm, mm.
right?
I see you, boy. I see.
And yeah, I mean, think about that. It's crazy. And now I literally just thought about that situation now, that story. But anyway, yeah, bro, like what you're saying is so powerful. And I mean, that all that Red Bull stuff, it's draining, it's out there, it's so popular, it gets so much attention. And the saddest thing is it attracts the young guys, it attracts the young girls, and so now they feel like they have to be this person in order to get a guy. Like don't ever feel like you're not enough. Don't ever feel like,
Mm,
you have to be who this guy wants. Like, you have to dress a certain way, or you have to act a certain way, or all these things. And like that's just it's conforming, right? Romans 12 verse 2, it's like it's so clear in what it says. Um,
yeah,
Paul speaking to the Romans and telling them, listen, like you don't have to conform to the patterns of this world. Like, don't do it. He didn't say you don't have to. He said don't. Like, just do not do it.
yeah,
Like, it's bad. Don't do it. Um, he told the Thessalonians of Thessaloniki, right? He said to them, avoid sexual morality. He's very stern in what he did. Like, yes, it was a letter. He didn't actually say it, but I mean, he was very like prompt on his words. Don't, avoid. Okay, cut your hand
mhm,
off. Okay, if it causes you to sin. Matthew said that. Like, you
yeah,
gotta understand, like, the Bible says these things for a reason. It doesn't say like you can choose to not, conform or conform. It doesn't give you the option. It literally it's very direct and it tells you these things.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's like really important because yeah, when it comes to like living together, I think that is such a norm. Um, and it's like such a common thing as well. And it's a sad thing because it's destroying, again, like coming back to our points of like it destroys marriage, it destroys what it means to be married, what it means, to and a good example is I can't understand this, but like football players, they'll be with their girlfriends for years and they just don't get married. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Like it's just you together for so long. And yeah, it's just something that always like I looked at and I'm like, it's weird. But like it's a toxic culture in which like that's how they are. Like they just don't get married. It's like to have a girlfriend, and that's it. Like it's just like you're dating for years and years. Um
mm,
and they have kids with these women and it's like, so yeah, I mean, finding that man, finding the one, there's no the one. Okay. There's no like, okay, that's him. You're gonna find him one
yeah,
day, he's there, like he has a GPS to go find him. No, like that's not what God's saying. Like God's not gonna do that. Like the
yeah.
free will's in your hands and you make that choice, you know?
Mm.
But yeah, that's just what I wanted to add there, bro.
I mean, damn. I mean, it goes back to what you said, right? Like, there's no soulmates. Like Jesus, Jesus is your only soulmate. Jesus is the
Yeah,
one. I love that.
exactly.
But speaking about like how with red pill content and stuff, like it attracts so many of like the young men and like the young women watching it. Like, I was just thinking, like, my heart just breaks for like those. I mean, for the young men watching it, I'm like, they are looking. Do they just want some kind of like relationship where like they just want some kind of like leadership, like some
Mm,
kind of masculine leadership, and they're going to
yeah,
that, which is obviously terrible. They should be coming to God for the same reason I said,
exactly.
firm foundation. But also my heart breaks for like the young women who are seeing this content, right? Because Red Bull content is quite like you think of like fresh and fit and stuff. It's very de- derogatory. That's the word. Yeah, it's very derogatory and like degrading towards women.
Derogatory,
I'm
yeah.
imagine being like a young woman, like I'm thinking of like the few like young women who will watch that and they they're like, oh damn, like this is what I'm supposed to be as like a woman, and like they actually like try and conform to that. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
man, like that is
crazy.
so bad. And again, like I said, red pill is like feminism for men. It's also the same thing with like feminism, where you see like all these like young men, who were growing up in like the last, especially in like the last 10, 15 years, where it's like you being told like, you as a man, like there's something wrong with you fundamentally, and now you have to like try and change yourself to like fit that mold. I'm thinking of like young
Yeah,
women doing the same thing for like a red pill, and I'm like, damn, my heart breaks for that, man, because that is awful. And I think that's why it's important again to read our Bibles. Like again, if you have like a father who's proper, right, who's firmly led by God, and the same thing we should be looking for your children, right? Which is why it's important for you to pick a godly man. Is that like that's going to be your daughter one day? Who's going to
exactly.
see, like, you want your daughter to see like that content
Yeah,
and be like, this is nonsense, bro. He just chucks it away. Like that's what you want to see. Um, but yeah, I almost thought of something that I was gonna speak about. I completely forgot. Um, but yeah, I love what you said again about the third point, right, from your original monologue, uh, about
Yeah,
him
yeah,
being
yeah, yeah.
family orientated, right? Um,
Mm,
it's so important. Like it really is important. You don't want that guy who's just gonna be like working, like chasing money and all of that. And it goes back to the same thing. You want to make sure he's God led. He's a biblical man. Because you don't want to be like that father who's. You don't want to be with the man who's the absent father. Like he's always working and he
yeah,
provides. You got a nice house to stay in, but he's never there,
exactly.
right? Oh yes, I remembered. I remembered the point I was gonna make. Last week he spoke about you said something that Jonathan Potlida said on the podcast, where he said that you should, as a man, like you should just spend time around like godly women and just talk to a godly woman so you know what she looks like. I'd say the same thing applies here, right? Like spend time
Yeah,
around
yeah,
like godly
100%.
men. Go talk to the godliest man you know, right? And just spend time around them. Like if you have a dad who's a godly man, like you've hit the jackpot, right? And again, the same thing goes. That's why you want to pick like a godly man so that your children have a godly man and a
Yeah,
godly dad and a godly mom, right? If you have a
100%.
godly dad, like it's perfect. You've got the perfect blueprint. You know what a godly man looks like, right? But if you don't, and that's fine, you can't like all pick our dads. Um, Go spend time around like godly men, like the godliest man, and just speak with them, and so you know what it looks like, right? So you know what a godly man looks like, and it's easier for you to pick like a godly man. But yeah, that was all I had to say on that.
Yeah, 100%. Agree completely. And yeah, like just building those foundational relationships with people that you know are solid in the Word of God or have a really good relationship with God. And those people. Like again, it brings me back to that TikTok I always share with you, and you love it the the way
Way,
UK
yeah.
where the guy said like he literally converted to Christianity because of how his friend acted towards him,
Mm,
which always blows my mind. But yeah, exactly. Like you never know um, how your actions can influence someone or the way you are and just what you do. And I mentioned that because like women and girls watching this podcast, like literally a guy's actions and the way he presents himself and the way he acts towards other people is so important. Like the way he treats other people is such a good indicator of whether he's going to be a good biblical man, like a godly man. And I say this
mm,
because the Bible literally says like the one of the most important commandments is love your neighbor as you love thyself. Like it's there and it's written there for a reason because how he treats other people is how he's going to treat you. Like most of the time, it's like that's how it should be, right? In most cases,
yeah.
and if you're not seeing the same treatment, he's not a consistent man. It's as simple as that. Like if he treats you differently to how he treats other people, that's not the case, right? It's like you know what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
And if he treats other people and he doesn't treat you in the same way that he treats other people, whatever, like it's not right, right? She should be treating everyone with the same respect, the same love. Um, so that is a very good indicator, and I think it's a one that goes under the radar quite often. And then yeah, like I mean, all of this leads to like exactly what you're saying, like being God led, being spirit led.
Mhm.
Something that's very hard to find in our generation today because of the influence of Red Pill and all these things. Looks maxing is another one I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of the time. It's like, oh my word. And you get apps now where it literally shows your percentage out of 100 of how you look to the ideal man that there is. Right.
It's such
And
a
it's like,
joke.
oh. Um, like the Adonis, basically
Adonis. Giga
the
Chad.
Adonis model. Yeah, all of that. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's what the internet does. It creates this model and then it gets views and it generates money because of these little trends and these little things. And then, why I say like the young guys are affected and the young girls are affected is because they're not married yet. Like they're not in that stage yet where they're like, oh, wow, this was absolute rubbish. I wasted my life listening to all these things that just didn't benefit me at all. And it's only when you're out of something do you realize what you were in. You realize what you were trapped inside and that
Mm,
blueprint, right? And this happens a lot. Like you'll give friends advice. Like I know one of my friends, like they were in a toxic relationship, and it was really bad and it was really frustrating. And he would complain about this and that, whatever. And we'd give him advice. Like I'd give him advice and say, like, listen, this is what's going on. This is how you should get out of it. This is what you should be doing. And he wouldn't listen. Like he just literally wouldn't listen. And he'd like, idolize this girl and whatever. And eventually when he broke up and they split up and whatever, and he got out of the relationship, he actually saw and he was like, oh wow, like damn, this is what I was doing to the people I loved. This is how
Yeah.
it affected me. This is, what it did. So it's like, getting that perspective, that outside perspective of knowing, like, listen, this is how it can harm you. But yeah, I just want to share a verse here. And yeah, this is what you should look for in a man. It's 1 Corinthians, and it says, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love. And again, coming back to the loving aspect, it's like, how does he love people? How does he love people in his life? His mom, his dad, his siblings,
Yeah.
friends, all that kind of thing. The way he treats, oh, this is a very good one. The way he treats waiters at restaurants, right?
Yeah.
That is such an underrated one. And I've seen videos where girls were like, I knew he wasn't the one when he treated that waiter like absolute dirt. And I was like, wow, like that's very true though, right? So like that's a very good one. It's like treating people in love. And the verse says, be watchful. Okay, you want a man that is observant, he's watchful. Like he's always alert. Okay, he's always there. A man's job is to protect like his family. Okay, so a protector, right? And standing firm in faith. It's like a faithful man as well. I mean, it just goes like, obviously you want a faithful man. You don't want a man that cheats or an adulterer, right? You want a man that's going to be
Yeah.
there. He's faithful towards God, right? His first thought in the morning, his first actions orientated towards God.
Yeah.
He starts his day with God and he ends his day with God. Like that is key. And the hard thing is that public appearance always outweighs private actions, right? In the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
So I can tell you one thing, but I'm doing another. It's like also like he's not a hypocrite, and the Bible speaks about hypocrites so much. It's actually crazy,
Jesus
and
particularly, bro.
yeah,
A lot of times Jesus
I
was
don't know
like,
which verse
you
it is.
hypocrites.
Yeah, like hypocrites are like it's so common in the Bible. So yeah, you want a guy that's like genuinely um just loves God like more than anything, and that's a journey as well. Like you're not just going to find a guy who's perfect in everything. Like we can be mentioning all these things, but I can tell you right now that you're not going to find a man that has every single one of these things because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. Okay, Romans 5:8. We've all fallen
Yeah.
short of the glory of God. Okay, we've all sinned, we've all made mistakes, and we will make mistakes. Okay, but it's trying to live according to the standard that God has placed in front of us because it is the best way to live. That is why
Yeah.
we're saying all these things. That is why we presenting all these things. But yeah, bro, that's all I wanted to add there. If you have anything.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add. I thought that was just, that was incredible. And yeah, going back to the verse you read was from Samuel, right? No, wait, Corinthians.
1 Corinthians. 1
Yes,
Corinthians, yeah.
First Corinthians. Nah, that was good. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. Um, yeah, I think the only other thing I really wanted to speak about on this topic that I didn't really, I guess we all kind of just touched on it and all these things we spoke about, but I think it was just, it was from Vadi Bokkum's sermon, and he was speaking about how when you're like in the honeymoon phase of the marriage, like obviously that's vibes and stuff, like it's cool, but the marriage, the real marriage starts when when the man has to choose, when he has to choose to love you, right? And I think that's what it goes back to kind of
Mm,
what I was saying about why he must be God led, and his love for God and God's love for him is the blueprint for his love for you, because again the
yeah.
marriage doesn't matter, like the honeymoon period, it's so easy to just stay in love because it's honeymoon period. But after that, that's when the real marriage starts, when you have to wake up every day and choose to love her. I think that's why it's important for him to be God led. Also because of like the characteristics he chooses you based on. You know, if he just chooses you because like, you're pretty or whatever it is, but there's no like real depth there. When he has to choose to love you, you know, when that beauty fades, or you know, maybe it doesn't even
Mm.
fade, but for him, you know, it's like the novelty is worn off. That's going to be a problem. But if he's picked you not just on that, but also on your biblical character, and you know, you're in Ephesians 31, what? Not Ephesians, flip. There's no Ephesians 31, bro. Proverbs 31 woman. It's because people say like there's a Proverbs 31. I think it's Proverbs 31 where it says, um, so was it the one that says submit? Is it that one? Or is it Ephesians?
That's Ephesians.
That's Ephesians. No, Ephesians is the one. There's Ephesians where it says, "Husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church." Like people always like put those two together. That's why I mentioned Ephesians. But yeah, if he picks you based on the fact that you're a Proverbs 31 woman, and again going back to last week where it was like because you know he's God led, he's focused on his purpose in God's kingdom, and obviously him being on his purpose in God's kingdom means that you know the woman he picks needs to be one who aligns with his purpose, and this is the woman that God has for him. If he picks you based on those characteristics, then when it's time for him to choose to love you, he's not going to struggle with that because he's chosen you on the correct characteristics. But yeah, that was kind of all I
Mm.
had left for this. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that or if you want to close out.
Yeah, just two things. Yeah, the first thing I want to say, like that's a really good what you mentioned about its values and like what she possesses in that sense. It's like, you know, like things that are of God. Proverbs 31 is it's an amazing book. I read it like 2 days ago. So I mentioned that earlier. Such a great
Yeah.
book, and it gives you really good blueprints of what it is to for guys watching this. A good blueprint of what to look for in a woman. And I
Mm.
think also, right, like if you're looking for a guy that has all these things and whatever, you should also be striving towards being a Proverbs 31 woman. Um, if you're watching this, right? Like you can't be striving towards looking for this guy that all the things that we mentioned, but you're a Proverbs 5 woman. You know, like it's you've got to bring it's what marriage is, it's right. It's you giving 100% and it's him
Mm.
giving 100%, right? It's not a
Yeah.
50-50. It's like 100%.
Yeah.
I'm giving everything. I want to be the best possible woman because I want the best possible husband. Okay, the best godly husband I can find, right? Same with guys. Like you should be striving to be the best um, godly man you can be to find the best godly woman. That's what it really is at the end of the day. And I just want to end off with this verse in Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13, and it says, and he's basically wrapping up this whole part, and that's the whole story. Here is my final conclusion: fear God and obey His commandments, for this is everyone's duty. Okay, and
Mm.
the reason I say that is because the fear of God is the beginning of understanding, knowledge, wisdom. Okay, if you really want to find out what it's like to be a godly woman and a godly man, that is it. It's like it's fearing God, it's obeying His commandments. Okay, it's following Him in every single thing that you do. It's seeking first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. It's humbling yourself under the Lord. It's delighting yourself in the Lord. And it says, therefore, this is everyone's duty. Okay, it's not just a
Yeah.
man's duty. Okay, it's a woman's duty. It's not just a woman's duty. It's a man's duty. And that is just like where it starts. And yeah, bro, like I think you can close us off.
Oh, I mean that's perfect. I was actually surprised we were able to like speak for like what an hour and 13 minutes on this topic because
Yeah,
we spoke like an hour and a half last week on
crazy.
similar. It's the same topic, it's just tailored differently. So I was surprised we had
Yeah,
so much to speak about, but it makes sense because you know when we first made the relationships in like when did we post it in like April or something? We had 4 episodes, right? So it makes sense. There's always so
yeah,
much to speak about on this, and I think
crazy.
a nice way to like tie it out is something that Vody Bockham said, where he was saying that he's raising his children to be good husbands and good wives. And you're saying you can't go wrong with that because even if you are part of the 0.001% of people who are called to be single, like what does a
Mm,
godly wife or a godly husband have that a godly like single person wouldn't have, right? Like we still called to be like
mm,
Jesus, right? We're still called
yeah,
to follow what God said. And I think that's you can't go wrong with that, because now, like, you've seen in the episodes we're
Yeah.
speaking about now, where it's like last episode we're speaking about like what to look for in a wife, but we also spoke about what to be in order to be like a good husband. And in this video, we did the same thing,
Yeah.
just flipped. It's like what to look for in a husband or what to be as a wife. And I think it's just very important because it just calls us to be, I don't know, higher selves sounds very new age, like blasphemous. Not higher selves. We should just be who we're called to be, right, in God, like
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
children of God. So yeah, you can't go wrong with like. I guess that's a conversation for later when we have children. But like, you can't go wrong with like raising your children to be good husbands. But for you right now, I guess
Yeah.
our objectives should be aiming to be good wives and husbands before we are wives and husbands. But yeah,
Exactly.
I don't have anything else to add. It's been a wonderful topic, very in-depth topic. I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. And yeah, just make sure you subscribe, because we upload every Sunday at 8, and it is every Sunday. We're very
Yes,
consistent.
sir.
How long has it been, Barry? No, it's 23 episodes, so it's been almost 6 months. Damn, that's crazy. Almost 6 months.
What?
That is
6
insane.
months.
Every Sunday
Bad.
for almost the last 6 months we've uploaded. So yeah, make sure you guys
Crazy.
subscribe. We do have an online community if you guys want to join. It's a Discord. We definitely have massive plans for that, to make just an online community for like fellowship for young adults to just come there and have conversations like this. Go do worship, make friends, everything. But yeah, for now it's just a Discord. Make sure you guys join if you guys are looking for community, and hit subscribe. Until next week, we will see you guys.
See you guys. Cheers.